1 in 5 suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Marla beat me to the punch. That I would say never happens.
That's not true.
But obviously it's not true because it just happened. This is Mental Health Mondays.
All I do is win, win, win.
Marla is a winner today. She wasn't here last week, so she couldn't possibly win. I see she's been planning for a week how to get this win in. But hey, as usual, we've been telling you about this show for the last 2-3 weeks coming up, that we were going to have Scott Kiloby back as our guest. Not only is he back, but he is now going to be a regular on Mental Health Mondays, and he is really going to educate us on mindfulness. Today's show is actually brought to you by the Kiloby Center for Recovery, the Mindful Revolution in Addiction Treatment, and the Natural Rest House Detox Residential Center. And we're giving away. So, guys, after you hear this great information today, when you call the Kiloby Center, you can say that you heard it from you.
Right here on Mental Health
Mondays. Got referred by Mental Health Mondays, but ask for your free list of 5 tips when you're dealing with a loved one struggling with addiction. Oh, man, it's going to be amazing. Of course, when you do, call 866-545-6295 or email info@kilobycenter.com. That's KILOBY center.com.
And we'll be sure and post this so you guys, and you'll find it on all of our social media pages and also on our website as well.
Absolutely. Scott Kiloby is an internationally recognized and sought-after author, teacher, and speaker on the subject of mindfulness and non-dual wisdom as it applies to addiction and other mental illnesses or brain differences. He's the founder of the Living Inquiries community and the founder and CEO of the Kiloby Center for Recovery, located in beautiful Palm Springs area of California. When we come back, our guest will be Scott Kiloby.
Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
Hey guys, listen up. Learn something.
Welcome, Scott. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Yes. We've been looking forward to this since the last time you were here.
We really have. And I want to remind everybody that this is something that I'm going to continue to look forward to. So we're honored that you're willing to come in, and we're going to cover, because it makes it easy to cover specific things, because the last time you were here, I absolutely had a takeaway. So I'm sure that if I'm getting a takeaway, because I'm a pretty tough cookie, all of us can have a takeaway as well. And these are things that are really going to help our wellness. So welcome.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So Scott, Terry, please remind us just a brief overview of mindfulness in general.
Well, depending on who you're talking to, you'll get a different definition. But essentially, it's present moment awareness. So it's attending to your thoughts in the present moment, observing them, feeling your feelings directly, attending to everything really in the present moment, because everything happens in the present moment.
Right.
Right. So just being awake and aware here, and not so much in your head. But if you're in your head, you're watching the thoughts. You're allowing them to come and go so they don't grab onto you. And that's what keeps you present, is just by watching things instead of what we normally do.
So now when I hear that sounds so simple.
Hold on. What is the unconscious normal behavior?
Good question. I was actually going to say that. So most people, I think, like when you're driving in a car, you're walking somewhere, and a story comes through and you grab onto it. You don't realize you're doing it, but you grab onto it and you keep repeating it and keep the self-talk going, the negative self-talk. That's how most people, we're not taught to witness thoughts when we were a kid, right? That's the thing. So it actually is very simple, but because we were never taught it, we most operate the other way, which is just our thinking makes us suffer, essentially.
So, okay, so now to say it so simply, it's like my dad when he first told me, I was like, Dad, so, I'm having a little disagreement with Marla for the first time. And how do I deal with this? He was like, son, if you give a woman what she needs, she'll never want for anything. And I was like, man, that's amazing. Thanks, Dad. Click. Well, how
do
the
that?
hell do I know what she needs? I called him back and asked him. He fell out laughing.
Yeah.
He said, good luck.
Right.
So when it comes to mindfulness, to say to just be totally present in the moment, that seems like I'm going to try to not access the past, things like this that are might be triggering me in this moment. It might not be the same as, or not to look at it the same as the last time I was triggered by this.
Right.
It was that kind of on the same pathway.
Well, okay, so you're right. It isn't simple for people who first start. That's true. It's a practice that you have to start, just like with meditation or going to the gym as a practice. But after a while, you learn how to witness thoughts. In the past is thoughts arising now. So they're happening in the present moment too.
Wait, say that one more time.
The past are thoughts arising now. That's how we know the past.
Yeah, because you can't really access what actually happened back then.
Or you can't access
just your thoughts, your memories.
Access the future.
Exactly.
Except through thinking. So all we're living here in the present moment, and we're constantly time traveling in our heads in the past and the future. But if you start to witness your thoughts, then if a thought comes in from the past, something that happened yesterday, a trigger from your wife or whatever, and you begin to witness it, we can talk about what that means. Yeah. As you witness it, though, and you let the thought just come and go, the thoughts come and go, there's a moment at which the thoughts fall away, and you can come down and feel. That's the point. Because the feeling is what's driving the thoughts, right? If you're thinking about an argument you had yesterday, you're feeling the anger of that, you're feeling the anxiety, but you're not in your body feeling it, because feelings are meant to be felt. We're normally in our heads thinking about it.
Wow.
So this is about coming down into the body too and actually feeling these feelings. And when you feel them directly, they tend to just fall away. That's the thing. But because we don't
so when you feel them correctly.
Yes.
So what is an incorrect way to feel?
Well, that's a good question. So there's no incorrect way, but if you're in your head a lot and you try to come down into your body, it's hard because your mind keeps your attention. You want to go back. But if you learn through this practice to quiet the mind every now and then with little techniques, when your mind is quiet, you can bring your attention down into your body and just really be present and allowing it gently to be. You really kind of have to get your mind a little bit quiet, but that's actually easier than it sounds. It's just the people who've never picked up the practice say, how could I possibly quiet my mind?
Yeah.
But it's doable. People have been doing it for thousands of years.
So now, after reading your book, Natural Rest, what I really come to is I find that there's so many, your approach makes perfect sense, great, but a lot of people talk about mindfulness. It's not all the same thing.
No.
So explain the difference between real mindfulness and some of the myths and the counterfeit versions of mindfulness. And I don't want to cast dispersion on anybody who is doing any type of practice that's helpful to you.
Right.
But there is real mindfulness that Scott is talking about, and there are other people who just use the term semantically.
That's right. In our culture, it's being used a certain way, like to say, be mindful that you have a 3 o'clock appointment, or something like that. That's really not what mindfulness is. We've kind of hijacked the term into our culture.
Right.
But what it really means is to be present to your thoughts, your feelings, to the present moment, to from your own awareness. We all have an awareness within us that can observe, that can see thoughts, that can feel feelings, and can be here present. That's what it is. It's present awareness. But we're so locked into the story of time that we don't access that present.
So before Scott leaves today, he's actually going to take us through an exercise to deal with something known as negative self-talk. And before we get into the next segment, just briefly tell us, what is negative self-talk?
And is that what's keeping me up all night long?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Negative self-talk is the ego.
Because usually my negative self-talk comes from my wife.
Yeah. That's a whole nother story. Another radio show there. But in terms of it conjuring up in your own head, self-talk is usually ego-based. It's based in our ego, which is our false sense of self. So it's the story in the mind that we keep telling ourselves.
About ourselves.
And as you notice, in your story, you're the most important character and everybody else is a secondary. So that's the falseness of it. You're real. None of us are actually the most important person on earth, but our mind tells us that
everything revolves around us, because that's how we experience.
That's right. We identify with those thoughts. We actually believe the voice in our head is us, and so we're entertaining that what we think is us. But here's where it gets deep. As you start to recognize those thoughts coming and going, you recognize that you're really not your mind.
Okay,
Wow.
hold that. Put a pin
Wow.
in that right there. That's awesome. I want you to repeat that sentence when we come back. We have to take a break. We'll be right back with more Scott.
Mine
Scott
already
Kiloby.
blown.
Sorry.
We'll be right back.
When Dave and Marla get together, it's hot.
You may not realize it, but these words, often used to describe someone with a mental health condition, can be very harmful. In a country where 1 in 5 people are affected by a mental health condition, it's time for all of us to step up and change the conversation. Just because someone's struggle isn't obvious on the outside doesn't mean they aren't hurting on the inside. We need to see the person, not the condition. Join with me, pledge to be stigma-free.
The Kiloby Center for Recovery is the first primarily mindfulness-based addiction, depression, and anxiety treatment center in the U.S. The non-12-step approach is based on founder Scott Kiloby's book, The Natural Rest for Addiction.
The Kiloby Center is located in the beautiful community of Palm Springs, California, and provides 24-hour care for individuals seeking addiction treatment with step-down programs to help clients integrate back into their daily lives.
A recipient of the Joint Commission's Gold Seal of Approval for Behavioral Health Care Accreditation, the Kiloby Center for Recovery is proud to display this symbol of quality that reflects the organization's commitment to providing safe and effective care.
Over 84% of clients reported complete relief from symptoms of trauma, and 95.7% of clients reported complete relief from anxiety. Over 87% of the Kiloby Center for Recovery's clients reported complete relief from depression, and get this, 100% of clients who presented with suicidal thoughts when they first came to the Kiloby Center for Recovery left with no suicidal thoughts at all.
Needless to say, the Kiloby Center for Recovery's mindfulness-based methods are effective.
If you or someone that you love suffers from addiction, depression, anxiety, or dual diagnosis, OCD, or general unhappiness in life, please contact the Kiloby Center for Recovery today by calling 866-545-6295 or visit the website kilobycenter.com today. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, otherwise known as ADHD, is a problem of not being able to focus, being overactive, not being able to control behavior, or a combination of these. For these problems to be diagnosed as ADHD, they must be out of the normal range for a person's age and development.
ADHD usually begins in childhood, but may continue into the adult years. It is not clear what causes ADHD. A combination of genes and environmental factors likely plays a role in the development of the condition.
Symptoms of ADHD fall into 3 groups. Number 1, not being able to focus, inattentiveness, fails to give close attention to details, or makes careless mistakes in schoolwork, has problems organizing tasks and activities. Two, being extremely active, hyperactivity, fidgets with their hands or feet, or squirms in their seat, has problems playing or working quietly.
The third category is not being able to control your behavior or impulsivity. Examples of that is having difficulty awaiting turn, interrupts or intrudes on others, butts into conversations or games. If you or anyone you know shows signs of these symptoms, please seek immediate professional help. This message is brought to you by NAMI San Fernando Valley and Loving Beyond Reason.
David is a thinker.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically wear my personality on my sleeve.
But when Marla and Dave get together, it's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
Okay, so Scott, here's what's interesting. I'm in a mode of presence,
Yes.
and I want to know, take off exactly where you left us, because that was a very powerful statement that you made.
Well, usually in our normal ego state of consciousness, there's so many thoughts going on that we don't even have moments without them. So when you start to meditate or practice mindfulness, you notice there are moments where there's no thoughts. So then who are we without our thoughts? There's something deeper that gets realized in that there's a presence here prior to all those thoughts. And that's the present awareness that I'm referring to in mindfulness. And you literally, it's called waking up. You literally wake up out of all of the negative self-talk and you start to recognize this presence within yourself. And that's where you realize you're not your mind. Your mind's like an organ, just like the liver produces this or the kidneys produce that, the brain produces thoughts. But we take that to be ourselves.
So we're applying thoughts to our actual identity and being.
It's all about identity, ego. So that negative self-talk is how we stay identified with that mind.
Wow.
Wow. Oh, go ahead.
Because I had a question, and I'm sorry, I got to go back to my actual note. Because when we first opened, what was mentioned, which I wanted to visit, and it was mindfulness and non-dual wisdom.
Yes.
Just briefly, can you just give me a snippet on that? That jumped out at me. The non-dual wisdom.
So that's a hard one to talk about. Non-dual means not to, and it refers to a realization in which you actually feel no separation here in the universe. Like there's an actual shift that people have had. I had it in 2007, very powerful experience where the sense of separation leaves and you literally feel at one with everything. It's an energetic shift in your experience. So I don't use the term a lot because the public doesn't know.
Right.
But this is the reason I became a teacher, is because of that shift that happened. So when the shift happened, the non-dual aspect of it was that the story of Scott just went quiet. There just wasn't a story there. And the mind was quiet for the first time. And all that negative self-talk that had been labeling everybody and everything and all these things went quiet. And so when that goes quiet, the felt sense of oneness can start to show up. The sense of, it's very powerful, actually.
It kind of reminds me, those pictures that they look like just random stuff, and you kind of hold them certain distance from your eye, and suddenly if you're able to
appears,
see without focusing, suddenly you see another whole picture inside of
good
what looked like a puzzle. But let's go back to the negative self-talk, because you mentioned the ego.
Right.
Now, when I think of my ego, it's usually, bolstering me up a little bit.
Right.
And a lot of times, usually, you're never as good as you think you are.
Yeah.
That was something that I was told a long time ago.
As well as you're never as awful as somebody says.
Exactly. You're never as bad. So is negative self-talk just the part when our minds are saying things like you're not worth it, you're not worthwhile, you're a failure, or is it also the falsely inflated ego side of things?
Yeah, if you meet someone who has a deficiency, we call them deficiency stories. So I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable, I'm whatever. That's the negative self-talk. And sometimes what happens is an overcompensation. So because of the negative view of oneself, the mind overcompensates and inflates another image of oneself. So when the deficiency story, the negative self-talk goes away, you don't do that inflating anymore. The inflation comes from the insecurity.
Oh, so the insecurities are actually making you.
That's what does it.
It's the
So
other side of the same coin.
Almost like a defense.
Yeah, it's a defense or a false self-image that you portray to protect yourself from the more vulnerable side of things.
We told you it was going to be a good one. So how can we, because as we come to the next section, you're going to give us an exercise to help us deal with this negative self-talk, as well as the false inflating that we just now learned is coming from that same negative space that we just don't feel worthwhile. So when we come back, we hope that you can give us an exercise and then help maybe also share something that we can help others who are dealing with this as well. Maybe if it's not us dealing with it, we might have family members that are dealing with situations like this. Okay. So when we come back, please, we're looking forward to this exercise.
Don't move.
Okay, so you hear that music, you know what it means. It's poll time, and our poll time dancer is back. There she is. Wow, she's enjoying it as usual. The last time we asked you last week, our poll question was, what percentage of mental health disorders show first signs before a young person turns 14 years old?
The choices were 25%, 50% or 75%? We're going to give our esteemed guests.
Okay, ask again.
So here's the question. What percentage of mental health disorders show first signs before a young person turns 14?
25, 50, 75%.
50?
50%. Ding, ding, ding. That's why.
Oh, he's mindful and smart. This cannot be right. I want
That's
some.
why he is our expert. The poll question, Marla, what's the poll question for next week?
Next week's poll question is, what is the number of U.S. adults living with PTSD?
Your options are A, 5 million, B, 12 million, or C, 18 million. And I guess whatever your choice is going to be, and we won't.
We're going to ask him, but we won't know till next week.
We won't reveal the answer
till
next week.
So you'll want to tune back in and see if he bats 100%.
Again, Scott, the question is, what is the number of U.S. adults living with PTSD? 5 million, 12 million, or 18 million?
It's got to have to be one of the two or higher numbers, I would think.
Especially after the pandemic. Yeah.
Now,
these numbers are pre-pandemic, as for the record.
Maybe the middle number. I'm just guessing.
Okay, hold on to that. So Scott puts his vote in at 12 million. Here's what's cool. You can vote. And so please log on to our social media sites and any place, Loving Beyond Reason, and cast your vote. We want to hear from you.
Absolutely. So remember to call 866-545-6295. That's the number to the Kiloby Center. And mention Mental Health Mondays, and you will get your free copy of the 5 free tips to help a loved one dealing with addiction. We're going to get back to this amazing conversation with Scott Kiloby right now. All right, so we're back. So, Scott, now this segment is about 8 minutes long, so I don't know if that's enough to do the exercise.
Just do it on me.
You want to do it on you? Yeah, I will.
Can you do it in 8 minutes?
I can. If you want to do it on you?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. So most people have a story in their mind that they're not good enough. Can you connect with that at all?
Absolutely.
Okay. So what we do at our work is we something called reverse inquiry. So what you do is you say the opposite of that. I'm perfect as I am, for example. Once you say it, you just sit in a meditative state and you listen to your thoughts that object to that.
So even if I don't mean it?
Right. You're not supposed to mean it.
Okay.
Because it's the opposite of what you actually believe. And that's what conjures up the mind. See, the mind doesn't like I'm perfect as I am. It prefers I'm not good enough. So it's going to provoke thoughts that prove that to you as you say it. And as you see those thoughts, here's what you'll do. So you sit here quietly and you just say to yourself, I'm perfect as I am. And you sit as if you're meditating and you just listen to the mind. You listen to the voice in the head that might object to that, or there might be an image that comes up. Whatever comes up, you just rest and observe that. So if it's words, you're very quiet and there's no judgment on the words. You're aware of them spelled out. Like if you say I'm perfect as I am, maybe it says you're an awful person. That's what your mind says. So you can either see those words spelled out, you can actually visualize it on a billboard or something. You're an awful person. Or you can hear it, just as a sound in your mind.
I've already started doing it. It's true.
Yeah. Right?
Right.
So, but here's a little trick. If you're new to mindfulness, there's a little trick you can do to help you kind of witness these thoughts one at a time. So if you say, I'm perfect as I am, and the thought comes up, you're an awful person, you're observing it first, you're aware of it, and as you're aware of it, you just bring 2 fingers to your forehead, and you move from being aware of the thought to tapping on the forehead. So as you're tapping, you listen to the sound and sensation of the tapping while you're doing it. And what that does is just unhooks you from that thought for a moment. It provides some space with that thought and helps that thought fall away. And then you sit quietly and you see what else the ego has to say about that. So maybe the next thing that comes up is an image of when you were 12 years old and someone criticized you or something. So that's not words, it's a memory. But you can see a memory in your mind's eye.
And I have said it, and I have thought, and now all that you're saying has already begun. And I mean, for me, I don't even mind sharing. So
but you're not tapping. You're not tapping.
Because I wanted to hear what he was saying about how to deal with it. Because for me, my thought, honestly, the opposite thought was, I am the most valuable person.
It has to be in your words. So that's good. That would be your inquiry.
That literally is. That's what it was. And then
what comes up when you say that?
You don't really measure up, and you have to work harder to prove yourself.
Right.
And you have to take a lot of you have to absorb everybody else's issues for you to establish your value. All this is actually, these are real thoughts for me.
Like, so think of those thoughts as like A, B, C, D, just for purposes of talking.
Okay.
There's 4 thoughts that came through.
Okay.
Now, if you just think those thoughts, you believe them. You're reinforcing the belief in them, right?
Right.
But if you sit quietly and the first thought comes up and you observe it from meditative awareness and you tap, then that thought falls away. And then the next one comes up, B, and you do the same thing. You observe it very quietly, do a little tapping, that one falls away. Once
Does it matter where you tap?
Not really.
Okay, because I've
you could do it there.
Yeah, I've known.
Most people do it here, but it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So the point being is that once you move through A, B, C, and D, the mind is then quiet because it's exhausted all of its objections, or maybe there's 18 thoughts that come up.
And that, because that was going to bring me to my question. Usually outside of this sort of quick short example session, how long does this usually take?
It takes a while because these are core, we call them core deficiency stories. So what you do is once you start this inquiry, for a while you would do it every day. You would sit for 30 minutes or an hour and conjure up the self-talk and witness it and watching it fall away. But after a while, the thoughts don't grab you as much anymore because you're witnessing them rather than thinking them and reinforcing them. So after you pick up the practice for a while, you'll start to see that you're not being triggered in the same way. You'll start to see that if you pick up the practice. But no, it's not going to take 10 minutes. It's going to take a while. It may take a few months, actually.
Is there usually a time of day that this is best to do, like first thing in the morning when the birds are just starting to chirp, or, that I can picture this scene in my mind that feels most relaxing? Or is it end of the day? Which works best for you, I would
Well, what I say is if you already have a practice or a time when you work out or you meditate or you're already doing something, try to fit this into it. Therefore, it's easier. So if you do something at night, do it at night. I tell people usually in the morning when they wake up or right before they go to bed, but also throughout the day. Because throughout the day, mom calls, right, and says something, and then all of a sudden, I'm not good enough, comes up. So pick it up then, too.
Man, thank you so much. And just like that, wow.
Well,
what did you think about
what
that,
I
Marla?
thought about it, not only was it amazing, but what I also immediately realized in talking to Scott in this moment is how many things I've allowed to become disruptive distractions in every moment for me. Like, in other words, I have to even tell myself, okay, I don't have to click over. If I'm in the middle of something, my tendency is to be attentive to any other thing that comes and prove myself, which is an issue for me. And I'm very open. So I dealt with my father being an extremely still alive narcissist, and to a really hard degree. So these are the things that I've come to understand about the root of what I feel in me. So it's interesting because it does require the awareness and also the release. So I find it to be invaluable advice and an invaluable exercise, and we're going to do it.
It's amazing, and thank you very much for that. So we told you guys that Scott has 5 tips when you call the Kiloby Center
or email.
The number to call is 866-545-6295. The email is info@kilobcenter.com. That's KILOB as in boy, Y, center.com. And I'm looking at these tips. I don't know how much you want to give away, Scott. Can we start talking about them a little bit?
Go ahead, sure.
And so when we come right back, we're about to go to break. When we come back,
I get to pick it.
We'll tell you the 5 tips, but also when you call, you will get a list of the 5 tips. It's a beautiful brochure.
Yes.
Keep it on your refrigerator. It'd be very helpful. We've used these tips before, unbeknownst to Scott. We're just now saying them for the first time, but you don't want to not have this on your refrigerator. So make sure you call immediately following the show. We'll be right back.
Bad.
Worthless.
Don't trust them. They'll hurt you. You're worthless.
It's pointless.
When the pain of schizophrenia meets hope, everything can change. Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
It's raw, real, and unfiltered.
So right quick, if you would allow me, can you
Yes,
share? Can you share tip number 4? So this is one of the amazing tips that you're going to be receiving. It's number 4 is if they begin to engage in manipulative behavior, trust your eyes and your ears and learn how to say no. And that for me is and scene.
What does that mean, and scene?
That just means that's impactful for me, because that's where you get caught up. I mean, you know, for me, it comes with everything, including ownership of things you shouldn't even be considering. It's in us to come to some conclusions, in my opinion, that solve for us, because you are the only one inside your own soul. So I think that, you know, that's probably one of my, I feel like I could check into a mental rehab center just to detox from accepting toxicity from others.
Yes.
Our guest today has been Scott Kiloby. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today and giving us that exercise to helping us deal with the negative self-talk and the education that the negative self-talk can also include that inflated ego that just says that we're the best thing and the world revolves around us. That's really a deficiency. I'm not that great. Or is that negative self-talk? Oh no!
And I have to say this, you know, the reason that we are blessed to have Scott he's going to be on once a month, having the Kiloby Center as a sponsor, is because he has a wealth of information.
Absolutely.
There's no way we can tap into the things that are really going to help us with mental wellness and mindfulness, and to break the addictive, which is what I was saying before we went on air, that, you know, we have to begin to stop, in my opinion, looking at addiction as always a substance issue. We have unhealthy things that are connected to everything from the way we use our time to sexual stuff to whatever it is that is a distraction is something that
And scene.
Yeah, and
ooh. Now, when you get the end scene from the master, that's a real scene
well
right
said,
there.
Though. Well said.
Now, Scott, give us closing thoughts.
No, I just love what she just said, because you can really get lost in the idea that it's about the behavior, about the alcohol, not seeing that someone is suffering deeply in pain. And you can miss that because the behavior is so loud sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
So we appreciate it.
We gave you one tip. Make sure you call. Again, the number is 866-545-6295 or email info@kilobycenter.com. Get your 5 tips. They'll be very helpful. Scott shared with us about negative self-talk, gave us an exercise to deal with it. When you call the Kiloby Center, you can receive the help that you need, and we all need help from time to time. We want to make sure that you understand, at least from us, there's no stigma in saying that I need help. As a matter of fact, your road to recovery starts with that first realization. Scott, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next month.
See you guys next week, and we'll see Scott next month. But next week, Raz B, you don't want to miss this one. He's going to be our guest. See ya.
If I could be a king.